Welcome to SHIUR, Transcending Freedom, a pre-Passover experience for everyone who hates being put into a box. SHIUR is an ongoing international project that explores text, ritual, art, theory, and more through immersive experiences, digital discourse, and other structures. Tonight, we invite you to join us in exploring a series of texts and practices that we will relate to the Passover theme of transcending the very notion of freedom itself. We invite you to experience what will come, not in an acquisitive way. There will be no tests or exams, but rather in a way of dwelling and engagement, where just like when you enter a garden, you enter it without any pressure, but to dwell in sensory and intellectual being. Tonight, we will read through a variety of texts. We will engage in breath and body, as well as sound. We invite you to turn off your phones and any other distractions. You can turn off the lights. You can create your own personal atmosphere and join us on our journey. I like to start SHIUR with the following text from the Berlin-born theorist Walter Benjamin. I will invite Mirna Funk to read this text from Benjamin.
In every era, the attempt must be made anew to wrest tradition away from a conformism that is about to overpower it.
So we see here a tension between this idea of tradition, which is usually something that you conform to, and conformism. Yet Benjamin is arguing that we can somehow liberate tradition from conformity. What can that mean? We're going to explore a bit of that tonight as we engage in the tradition of text-based discourse and hermeneutics and interpretation, as well as through a contemporary lens. I invite Mirna now to read the next quote from Tamar Ross, a contemporary scholar in Jerusalem, or in Israel.
The purpose of religious discourse is not substantive, referring to a particular truth, objectifying a particular state of being, responding to a particular need, but rather constitutive or regulative, offering us a cultural linguistic universe of discourse within which to live the life of faith. Religious discourse does not merely lead to the truth that it articulates, it is also what in actual effect enables their formulation. Rather than teaching us to distinguish between truth and falsehood, religion provides us with a way of life, cultural context or worldview, which allows us to address such questions.
We see here Tamar Ross very much influenced by the ideas of the Austrian philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein, where ritual, practice, tradition does not necessarily operate as corresponding to a fixed truth, but rather is constitutive. It creates its own truths, its own values. And that's how we can relate to ritual and tradition in a way that doesn't feel beholden to explain itself according to the terms of science or history. Tradition exists on its own, and it constitutes its own realm. Now let's look at some quotes from Wittgenstein himself. Mirna, please.
I see a picture. It represents an old man walking up a steep path leaning on a stick. How? Might it not have looked just the same if he had been sliding downhill in that position? Perhaps a Martin would describe this picture so. I don't need to explain why we don't describe it so. One thinks that one is tracing nature over and over again, and one is merely tracing round the frame through which we look at it.
Thank you. So the last two quotes come from Wittgenstein's Philosophical Investigations. And what we see here is how the filter, the frame, the lens with which we perceive the world is also constitutive. It also fixes or shapes meaning. So whether you are, the image of the man on this incline can either be somebody falling or rising, and its truth is not necessarily predicated on a fixed essence, but rather a product of how we mediate that truth. And that's what we're going to be exploring today. As you create your own special space by consciously performing these rituals, you are sanctifying through ritual and thought, space, time, life, body, and language, your own realm, your own world. I think this is something that's very unique about the Corona times, is this digital turn that allows us to embrace our situatedness, to acknowledge that it's through your screen that you are seeing, that you are listening to me speak. You are operating through your own filter. So many times we experience life through different veils and filters, and each influences us in a different way. What happens when you strip away influence after influence, and you're with nobody else except yourself? Is this even possible? Maybe that's the question. How do you eliminate all the influences so that you can be with one soul and feel that it is you? Or if we conclude that it is impossible to be free of influence, we can ask, what influences do we want to shape our lives? What actions can we take to build a life that we want? Passover is about deep structural change. The story of Passover is the story of the people of Israel who, against their will, are forced to undergo a complete change from slavery to Pharaoh in Egypt, a physical entity, to free subjects of an incomprehensible divine that is known as Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, or I will be that I will be. Everything that they were taught was right is no longer valid. They experience a radical reconfiguration of values and reality. In life, do we choose to change? Or do circumstances force us into transformation? What does the strange formulation of the divine name imply? Is it fixed and defined, or in flux and always in a state of potential becoming? Corona has led to a complete value restructuring. Many people's sense of productivity and identity was tied to their work, social and familial relationships, their routines, and many other forms of life that seemed fixed and taken for granted. Suddenly, we realize that these structures are not so sturdy, and shockingly for many, not so necessary. Sometimes this can lead to a positive opportunity to discover other forms of life and values, from connecting with your family in ways you never conceived, to connecting to yourself alone in ways you never thought of. Other times this can lead to loss, emotional turmoil, and pain. Maybe now we can understand the complexities of the Exodus story and the Haggadah, and how there were some amongst the escaped slaves that actually wanted to return to Egyptian slavery, with its fixed routines and seemingly solid structures, how after all the miracles they still worshipped idols. When we say in the Haggadah that each of us must see ourselves as slaves in Egypt, on this Seder, in the time of Corona, we might be able to actually say we know how they felt. In times of crisis, we can see how each person or group of people have a different hierarchy of values. We see how different people prioritize questions of family, health, money in their own ways. All can be important, but each value has its place in time. What is the time for now? What is your hierarchy of values? We are the ones empowered to transform time. We do not wait for any outside power or external force. It is up to us. If you do nothing, nothing happens. We determine what values are important to us and how we relate to time, and whether we sanctify it or let it dissolve into nothingness. How will you make this night different from all other nights? I will invite Mirna to read a quote from the Passover Haggadah, which is the text that Jews traditionally read on the eve of Passover in the ritual of the Seder. Mirna.
In each and every generation, a person is obligated to see himself as if he left Egypt.
Thank you. So the idea of Passover is also this idea of situating ourselves both in the position of slavery, of non-freedom, and the position of transition, and in the position of freedom. And it's through the act and practice of contemplating these different states that we can generate a sense of being that might not be able to come to us without that intellectual practice or without that physical practice. Because the minute we accept that meaning is situated, then we have to think about what are the situations that generate meaning. I will invite Mirna now to read a quote from the Mishnah, from the book known as Pirkei Avot, and then a comment from the Hasidic sage, Rebbe Nachum Mendel of Kotsk. I invite Mirna to read.
One who goes but does not do, he is rewarded for going. Rebbe Menachem Mendel of Kotsk asks, if he did not reach his goal, why is he rewarded? Rather, a person does not reach any step without first going. In the journey itself, one senses the reward.
Thank you. So I think this is very relevant for us today. So many times we say, we'll do something after. We'll do this after Corona, or we'll do this next week. But the very act of beginning itself is the process, is the reward. And we know that, we feel that. Because again, things don't exist in this essentialized, external, pure state. Things are situated. So it's only by beginning, it's only by action, by performance, not by contemplation, but by using that contemplation to get to that space of action. And then as we perform those actions, then reality is constituted. So we're going to start right now by exploring a very simple practice, which in a moment Vilma will lead us in. And it's going to be a practice about breath. In Hebrew, the word for breath, neshima, comes from the same root as the breath as a word for soul, neshama. We find the same thing in Latin, spirare, spiritus, in Sanskrit and Indo-Aryan German languages, the relationship between Atman and Atman. So as we're going to go through this exercise, we can explore how our sense of self and being can and is constituted by breath. At this point, I'll invite Vilma to lead us in an exercise.
Find a comfortable position, seated, palms resting on your knees. Gently close your eyes. And I'm going to guide you through a breathing sequence. So we're going inhale through the nose, inhaling, and exhaling, open your mouth, release. One more time, inhaling, 2, 3, 4, and exhaling, open your mouth, release. Inhaling, 2, 3, 4, and exhaling, open your mouth, release. The second round we'll do with the breath retention. So you'll do the same thing, inhaling through the nose, 2, 3, 4, and then hold the breath. And exhaling through the mouth, release, 2, 3, 4. One more time, inhaling, 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath. And then exhaling, open your mouth, release. The next exercise we'll do alternate nostril breathing. So your left palm is resting on the knee, and the right palm, we're gonna close the index and the middle finger, and we'll use thumb and the ring finger. The thumb is for the right nostril, and the ring finger for the left. So we're going to inhale through the left, 2, 3, 4, closing left, exhaling through the right, 2, 3, 4, inhaling through the right, 2, 3, 4, holding the right, exhaling through the left, 2, 3, 4. One more time, inhaling through the left, 2, 3, 4, closing left, exhaling through the right, 2, 3, 4. And we're just gonna do a few rounds like that. Very good, everyone.
Cultural linguistic universe. How? To wrest tradition away from to distinguish between truth. If you had been sliding, the cultural linguistic universe, religion provides us tradition away from a I see a picture to wrest tradition rather away constitutive truth that it articulates. If you had been sliding, truth that it articulates rather than teaching us. I don't need to explain why we don't. Religion provides us to wrest tradition away that it articulates. To wrest tradition away from falsehood. Religion provides us. Religion provides us. Cultural linguistic universe to distinguish between truth. Cultural linguistic universe. Religion provides us wrest tradition and falsehood. Religion provides us such questions, but rather constitutive. To wrest tradition away, from falsehood. Religion provides us such questions. To wrest tradition away from a falsehood. Religion provides us such questions. To wrest tradition away from religion provides us sliding cultural linguistic universe. Such questions. I see a picture to wrest tradition away from a falsehood. Religion provides us to wrest to distinguish away from truth, rather constitutive tradition that away from articulate truth that it religion provides us, but rather constitutive truth that it articulate. Religion provides us away from to distinguish away from rather constitutive truth. If you had been sliding downhill in that position, to wrest tradition away from rather constitutive. How? And falsehood. Religion provides us truth that it articulate. Falsehood. Religion provides us truth that it articulate. The cultural linguistic universe between truth. How? To distinguish between truth.
So what we did just now, we took the phrase and we divided it into smaller pieces, and each of the pieces we assigned to a color for this wonderful machine. It's called Orbiter. And we tried to play a little bit with time and meaning of the speech, of the voice, of the words, transforming them into something like normally called sound poetry, and transforming them into basically music of words, music of sounds. And we also available to play with time, to play it forward and backwards, to slow down a bit, and to make it really fast.
Cultural is articulate, rather constitute distinguish between truth.
And in this way, we just putting our focus taking the phrase, taking the words, and putting our focus onto something different, which is sound and music, and also try to use colors as our notation, as our language of creation on this instrument.
Such questions, but rather constituted to distinguish between truth that it actually had been sliding. I see a picture. And such falsehood. Religion provides us truth that it religion provides us.
Thank you, Aglaya, for that incredible performance. And thank you, Sasha, for explaining it. I find it very relevant to our discourse here about how we can take content and re-explore the way content is configured. What was once, let's say, built to be spoken can be built to make music. And not everything is communicative. Some things in life can create a new sense of being. And once we let go of the pressure and the assumptions that we have, we can see things in radically different ways. So I'm very grateful for your creating that experience for us. Thank you. So now, on the subject of how we look at things and changing the way we look at things and challenging the way we look at things, we're going to look at a text from the New Zealand author, Catherine Mansfield. And I'm going to invite Mirna to read.
There are in life as many aspects as attitudes toward it. And aspects change with attitudes. At present, we see life, generally speaking, in only a passive aspect because we bring only a passive attitude to bear upon it. Could we change our attitude? We should not only see life differently, but life itself would come to be different. Life would undergo a change of appearance because we ourselves had undergone a change in attitude. I'm aware, for example, of a recent change of attitude in myself, and at once not only my old stories have come to look different to me, but life itself looks different. I could not write my old stories again or any more like them, and not because I do not see the same detail as before, but because somehow or other the pattern is different. The old details now make another pattern, and this perception of a new pattern is what I call a creative attitude towards life.
Thank you, Mirna. So Mansfield understands that our attitude does not affect how we perceive life, but actually determines the form of life itself. By taking a proactive, creative attitude, we are empowered to conceive a very different life than we would if we were simply passive in accepting the structures that we take for granted. Do you take a passive or creative attitude towards life? How can we take a more creative attitude towards life, and what tools can we use, and what objectives do we have? And this is the key point here, is that we have a choice. Do we want to take a essentialist attitude that sees everything as fixed, so then you're either failing to see what's true, or failing to be what you think you need to be? Or do we accept that reality is very much subject to how we perceive the world and how we organize life? And if that's the case, then we certainly can acknowledge that there is an objective truth, but that objective truth is situated in a context. So it has to be situated in a particular context according to a way of seeing life. And this suddenly liberates us, because we say that we can radically challenge the way that we organize life. And we can explore different ways, through body, through mind, through sound, through art. And instead of being only receivers, we can be perceivers or conceivers, where we conceive. Mansfield also brings up the patterns we see. In life, it seems, due to a combination of our cognitive abilities and our social background or cultural backgrounds, we perceive patterns in life that may serve certain interests. Some more obvious, some less obvious. Some more healthy, some more toxic. You meet a person who adopts a certain pattern oriented around oppression, and suddenly everything that exists is a tool of oppression. Or its opposite. You meet a person who adopts a pattern oriented around light, around love, and everything they see is light and love. The mediating and determining factor as to how we are mentally and emotionally affected by what we are subjected to in life is simply our attitude. Next, we're going to look at a text from the German Jewish theorist Hannah Arendt. I will invite Mirna to read the text.
To be free and to act are the same. Freedom as inherent in action is perhaps best illustrated where the accomplishment lies in the performance itself and not in an end product which outlasts the activity that brought it into existence and becomes independent of it.
Thank you, Mirna. And this is very connected actually to what Playtronica does and what you guys do in your yoga. This idea that in other forms of art or action, when you do when you paint, you're painting for a product. So the brush stroke that you give is not there for the moment. It's for a final product. So it's a slave. But when you do music, when you play a note, or when you do yoga, you do a movement or a dance, the action itself is only there for the action. So that's the ultimate freedom, that you literally move and do for its own sake. Like tonight, each Passover is an experiment, absurdizing boundaries and categories, experiencing freedom in a way similar to the Arendt text, through performative actions that serve undefined and infinite nothingness, or what the Kabbalist described as ayin. Absurdity and freedom are linked by a liberation from justification, an act that refuses to justify itself, even letting go of purpose and unbound by context, dissolves into that nothingness that we both seek and flee from. Now we invite you to experience movement and gesture. We warn you not to take anything too seriously. Please go at your own pace if you want, and experiment with us in the following exercise. I invite Vilma to introduce the next segment.
So let's get our mats and we'll do some movements. So we'll need the mats for this. I'm going to guide you through yoga sequence. Let's find cross-legged position. We're going to inhale, raise the arms up to the sky, lengthen the spine, and exhaling, left palm on the right knee and the right palm behind, and twist. Every inhalation we try to lengthen, and every exhalation we twist deeper. Then coming back to center, inhaling, arms up, over the head, look up, lengthen the spine, and then exhaling, right palm on the left knee and the left palm behind your back. Every inhalation we lengthen, every exhalation we twist. And let's just do one more time. Inhaling, arms up over the head, lengthen, exhaling, twist. Left palm on the right, right palm behind. Inhaling, coming back to center, lift up, lengthen the spine, and exhaling, twisting, right palm on the left and left behind. And last time, inhaling, arms up, look up, exhaling, twist. Coming back to center, inhaling, arms up, lengthen the spine, and twist with the exhalation. Inhaling, coming back to center, arms up. Exhaling, release. Palms resting on your knees. Spine is straight. Inhaling, coming forward. And exhaling towards the right. We're going to do big circle. Then backwards exhalation. Inhaling, coming forward. Big round circle. In your own time, in your own pace. And then we can change direction. So we're going now to the other side. Exhaling, going backwards. Inhaling, coming forward. Breathing deeply. And then finding the center, finding the middle. We're going to place the left palm and then extend the right and bend towards the side. Feeling the stretch on the right side body. You can even gaze to your palm. And then with the next exhalation coming back to center, right palm on the mat. And then left arm stretches. Gazing to your palm, feeling the stretch on your left side body. And let's just do it a few rounds like this. Coming back to center. Bending towards the left. Gazing up. Coming back to center. And then towards the right. And then coming back to center. One more time. And last one. And coming back to center. Let's come into child's position. So Alina, I think your head is there. So seat to heels, extending your arms forward, forehead on the mat. Feeling the grounding, feeling the earth. And let's just stay here for a few breaths. Breathing deeply. With the next exhalation, we can tuck the toes under and extend into downward facing dog. Downward facing dog. So hips up, palms pressing on the mat, on the earth. And then next, inhaling, coming forward into plank. Gaze is forward. Tuck the pelvis under. One straight line. Exhaling, downward facing dog. Inhaling, plank. Exhaling, downward facing dog. Inhaling, plank. Exhaling, downward facing dog. From here, let's raise the right leg up in the air. And coming through, lunge. Inhaling, rising up to standing, extending both legs. Exhaling, rebending both knees. Inhaling, extending. Exhaling, rebending. Inhaling, extending. Exhaling, rebending. Inhaling, extending and opening up. Warrior two. So we're bending deeply in the right knee. Arms are long, gazing through your fingertips. Shoulders relaxed, chest is open. And finding the focus, connecting to your breath. Inhaling here. Exhaling, flip your right palm and reverse. Coming in reversed warrior. Gaze is up to your right palm. And then coming back, warrior two. Inhaling here. Exhaling one more time. Reverse. Inhaling, warrior two. And exhaling, reverse. Flip your right palm. Feel the stretch on the right side body. And then coming back, warrior two. Cartwheel your arms. Frame your right foot. And come into plank. Push up, chaturanga, look forward. Inhaling, upward facing dog. Exhaling, downward facing dog. And then lifting the left leg up, inhaling. And exhaling, going through to lunge. Opening the chest. Inhaling, come up. Extend both legs. Arms up over the head. Exhaling, bending both legs. Inhaling, extending. Exhaling, rebending. Inhaling, extending. Exhaling, rebending, finding the balance. Inhaling, extending and opening up. Warrior two. So we're bending deeply in the left knee. Chest is open, shoulders relaxed, gazing through fingertips. From here, exhaling, flip your left palm and come into reversed warrior, feeling the stretch on the left side body. Coming back, warrior two. Exhaling, flip, reverse. Inhaling, coming back, warrior two. And then exhaling, flip, reverse. Inhaling, coming back to warrior two. Cartwheel your arms, framing your left foot. And then step back, plank, look forward. Chaturanga push-up. Inhaling upward. Exhaling downward. And then knees on the mat. Coming into child's pose. Forehead resting. Arms extended. Surrendering to your mat.
Thank you, Vilma, for that incredible yoga experience.
My pleasure.
It was really powerful and beautiful to see that also combined with Playtronica. And thank you, Playtronica, for showing us that incredible way of how sound can travel through the body and through touch. One of the things that is very important to me tonight is to explore different ways of mediating content. And we assume that the only instruments are what we call instruments. But we're learning now that there are many instruments, and many instruments are not called instruments until we use them as instruments. And the body and the self, if we conceive of the body and self as a form, as an instrument that can transform the way we conceive the world or the way we conceive ourselves too, we can radically transform all the structures that we take for granted. And I think a living example of that is what is with what Playtronica is doing with music and sound and touch and body. Next, we're gonna look at a text here, one of my favorite texts from Rainer Maria Rilke, the Austro-Hungarian or Austrian author who came from Prague. This text here comes from Letters to a Young Poet. I will invite Mirna to read.
Have patience with everything that remains unsolved in your heart. Try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books written in a foreign language. Do not now look for the answers. They cannot now be given to you because you could not live them. It is a question of experiencing everything. At present, you need to live the question. Perhaps you will gradually, without even noticing it, find yourself experiencing the answer some distant day.
The Rilke one is very interesting because this challenges the idea of a question. Does a question require an answer? What if a question operates just as being a question? You don't ask a question to get an answer. And for a lot of the problems that we have in life, we always feel that we need to have an answer. And this idea says, hey, dwell on the question, live the question. It's really ahead of its time. This is from 1906 when he wrote that. The next text we're going to look at comes from the revolutionary anarchist Emma Goldman, who was born in Kovno, in Lithuania, where Vilma comes from, and lived in the United States, in the Soviet Union, and in Berlin here too. I invite Mirna to read this text.
No revolution can ever succeed as a factor of liberation unless the means used to further it be identical in spirit and tendency with the purposes to be achieved. Revolution is the negation of the existing, a violent protest against men's inhumanity, to men with all the 1,001 slaveries it involves. It is the destroyer of dominant values upon which a complex system of injustice, oppression, and wrong has been built up by ignorance and brutality. It is the herald of new values, ushering in a transformation of the basic relations of man to man and of men to society. It is not a mere reformer patching up some social evils, not a mere changer of forms and institutions, not only a redistributor of social well-being. It is all that, yet more, much more. It is first and foremost the transvaluator, the bearer of the new values. It is the great teacher of the new ethics, inspiring man with a new concept of life and its manifestations in social relationships. It is the mental and spiritual regenerator.
Thank you, Mirna. What's very interesting about Emma Goldman is that she was kicked out of the United States because of her activism. And she was invited by Lenin to the Soviet Union, where Kropotkin, one of her friends, an important anarchist, was there. And she came there quite positive, thinking that this was going to be something, this experiment would be a revolutionary space, something, the answer to the problems. But she was quickly disillusioned, particularly from the battle in Kronstadt, and also from the suppression of freedom of speech, of dissenting opinions. And that led her to argue for a form of revolutionary theory, of revolution, that argues that we have to behave in the way that the means that we attempt to achieve an ends need to reflect the ends that we want. So you can't say that I want a world of tolerance, of love, but the way I'm going to get there is through judgment and hate. The ethics, the value system, the way, the means need to reflect the ends. And I think this is something that's really relevant today. The next text we're going to look at is our last text, the concluding text, and it comes again from Hannah Arendt. I invite Mirna to read.
Objectively, the chances that tomorrow will be like yesterday are always overwhelming. The decisive difference between the infinite improbabilities on which the reality of our earthly life rests and the miraculous character inherent in those events which establish historical reality is that, in the realm of human affairs, we know the author of the miracles. It is men who perform them, men who, because they have received the twofold gift of freedom and action, can establish a reality of their own.
Thank you. So we realize here from Arendt's words, but also from everything we've been doing today, that we have a lot of power. We have a lot of capabilities in determining not only tomorrow, but also today. Because in the end of the day, we're going to be reflecting on our past that makes us, and how we filter that past is really up to us, but we need tools to do that. And I want to encourage all of us here to explore those tools, to let go, and also to grasp, to hold. It's through the mediating act of how we experience our world, which is also how we shape our world. And we're all sharing that world. We're all together in this intersubjectivity. So I want to invite all of you who are watching to continue and join us in our conversation. This is just one of many points in our discourse. Most of the people here are collaborators already with SHIUR. We're very grateful for our past collaborations and our future collaborations. And this is an experiment. We don't know where it'll take us. But all we can do is begin. So I wish you all a happy holiday. I want to thank all our participants. I want to thank Mirna Funk. I want to thank Vilma, Putriute, Joel, Stumpf. I want to thank Alina, Tsoy. I want to give a special thank you to Playtronica, to Sasha and Aglaya for not only participating but also creating such unique art, and I'm very grateful for all our past collaborations, and I'm looking forward to future ones. And I want to thank all of you, and ID Festival, and everybody else, and I want to thank Kevin and Lukas for their amazing video work, and everybody at Radialsystem. A big thank you. Happy holidays. And for those of you that are interested, SHIUR has regular events, both digital and when Corona will allow us, when Corona leaves us live. You can find out about our events on Instagram at SHIUR International. That's SHIUR International. You can also connect with us on Facebook, again at SHIUR International, and join us in our weekly digital virtual SHIUR every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Berlin time. Keep in touch. We're really grateful to have you with us, and we look forward to connect in the future. Happy holidays.
Namaste.
Shalom.